It's 8:45 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by J. Yogaraj, read by Soundhi Thavam. The President says the government remains steadfast in commitment to combat crime and ensure justice. The public asked not to panic over the AstraZeneca vaccine. The IDB urges new initiatives to boost the industrial sector, says all estates full to capacity. 1,220 school clusters and 350 supervisory school boards to oversee them. The court order issued against the JVP trade unions' protest in Colombo. Over 10,000 visitors witnessed 188 base jumps from the Lotus Tower. In news overseas, the North Korean leader inspects production of tactical missile system. In sports, T20 skipper Wanindu Hasaranga says he is satisfied with the composition of the squad. President Ranil Wickremesinghe has highlighted the government's efforts to enact numerous new laws aimed at apprehending criminals over the past 2 years. He made this observation during the opening ceremony of the new court complex in Theldenia today. Wickremesinghe also highlighted the government's achievement of implementing 75 new laws in the past 2 years, emphasizing that this initiative has positioned Sri Lanka as the sole country in South Asia with a modern legal system. Despite facing accusations of shielding wrongdoers, the government remains steadfast in its commitment to combating crime and ensuring justice, he further said. The President also reiterated his commitment to combating corruption by undertaking various transformative measures, the President's media division reported. In the wake of the recent mass withdrawal of AstraZeneca vaccines due to concerns over rare blood clots, Sri Lankan health experts emphasized that individuals who have received the AstraZeneca vaccine need not harbor undue fears regarding its safety. Addressing the media, Dr. Ananda Vijayavikrama, the chairman of the National Medicines Drugs Regulatory Authority, referenced a case in which the manufacturer of AstraZeneca acknowledged that complications from the vaccine are exceedingly rare, a fact they had previously admitted. He underscored that these rare complications are not indicative of future adverse effects, providing reassurance on the overall safety profile of the vaccine. The Education Minister Dr. Susil Premajanta said that arrangements are in place to establish 1,220 school clusters across the country and 350 school boards are to be transformed to oversee their operations under the initial phase of educational administration reforms. Dr. Premajant emphasized that the necessary cabinet memorandum outlining these reforms will be imminently presented, with the accompanying circular set to be issued in the near future. The minister made these comments during a press briefing held at the Presidential Media Centre under the theme of Collective Path to a Stable Country. The Minister of Education, Dr. Susil Premajant, further commented. The minister said that when he assumed the role of Education Minister 2 years ago, it was in dire situation. Fuel shortages were preventing children from attending school and examiners lacked fuel for essential travel. Additionally, a 14-hour power cut disrupted the educational engagement while schools had to be closed from time to time. Furthermore, due to the closure of schools during the COVID-19 epidemic, educational activities were severely disrupted. Exams could not be held and results were not released on time. Following that, the education sector was severely affected with the worsening of the economic crisis. However, significant progress has been made in improving the situation. All textbooks and uniforms for this academic year have been distributed. Examinations are gradually returning to their regular schedule. To this end, it has been proposed that the GCE O-level and GCE A-level examination should be held in the months of December and August. Discussions have been held with provincial authorities and relevant parties, and we are now implementing the agreed-upon proposals. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Despite having high forex generating capabilities, the Sri Lankan industry sector is yet to receive its due recognition from the government, lamented the chairman of Industrial Development Board of Ceylon, Dr. Saranga Alhapperuma. He said that firstly, the land allocation for industrial estates are less than 0.5%, and due to this all the industrial estates are now full to capacity. Hence, we cannot invite new industrialists to set up businesses in the industrial estates, he quoted. Land allocation for paddy is 2,760,000 acres, coconut 1,096,000, tea 548,000 and rubber 315,000. Sri Lanka's forest allocation is 4,777,000 acres, and currently the industrial sector only has 4,802 acres. The industry needs to have more than 1% of the total land allocation, which should be around 160,000 acres. With this additional land, there are several industries who will invest in businesses, which in turn will help to increase industrial export output and help to create new employment opportunities. The Maligakanda Magistrates Court has issued an order on several trade union leaders of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna JVP and others over a protest march planned in Colombo this evening. Accordingly, the court order prevented K.D. Lalkantha, Mahinda Jayasinghe, Ranjan Jayalal and other protesters from inconveniencing the public or pedestrians along several major roads in Colombo, including Deanstone, TB Jayamawatha, Technical Junction, Ibbanwala Junction, and the order has been issued by the Maligakanda magistrate Lochani Abe Vikrama after considering a request made by the officer in charge of the Maradana police station today. The president of the National Trade Union Centre, K.D. Lalkantha, Secretary Mahinda Jayasinghe, Deputy Secretary Chandana Surerachi, CEB Workers Union General Secretary Ranjan Jalal, the Chief Secretary of the All Ceylon General Port Employees Union Niroshan Gorakanage and the National Organizer of the Socialist Youth Union Eranga Gunasekara have been named in the directive. Accordingly, the protesters were prohibited from inconveniencing the public or pedestrians along the roads from Technical Junction to Kalepola, Technical Junction, Deanstone, Ibbanwala Junction, Dali Road, TB Jayamawatha towards Lotus Road, through Gamini Roundabout and the pavements along these roads. That concludes local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
More than 10,000 local and foreign visitors witnessed 188 base jump events held during the last 3 days at the Lotus Tower. The Lotus Tower Management Company Private Limited said 2 sets of fathers and daughters from the USA and Japan participated while highlighting the base jump event. They said 35 international base jumpers exhibited their adrenaline-fueled skills. The jumpers were brought into the country by the Team 3 Vision, who represents professional stunt skydivers and base jumpers. The base jump event was held on May 12th, 13th and 14th at the Lotus Tower and came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight. 264 new leprosy patients have been identified from across the island during the period from the beginning of this year, according to the Anti-Leprosy Campaign ALC. The director of the ALC, Dr. Nirupa Pallevatta, stated that of the new patients identified, 24 are children below the age of 15 years. She further stated that in 2023, 1,580 leprosy patients were reported and that the majority of them, 1,520, are newly identified patients. Meanwhile, of those 1,580 patients, 180 are below the age of 15, which is 12% of the patients, and came to you in Watchlight. On to a bulletin of world news making headlines tonight. Putin open to a dialogue on Ukraine that takes Moscow's interests into account. North Korean leader inspects production of tactical missile system. And Singapore swears in new prime minister after 20 years. Russian President Vladimir Putin had told a Chinese media outlet that he is open to a dialogue on Ukraine. He also indicated that Moscow welcomes Beijing's involvement in the effort to resolve the conflict. On Wednesday, Russia's presidential office posted online an interview that Putin gave to China's state-run Xinhua news agency. The written interview was conducted ahead of Putin's official trip to China. The visit is scheduled to take place on Thursday and Friday. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has reportedly inspected the production of a tactical missile weapon system in his latest visit to the country's arms factories. North Korea's state-run Korean Central Television reported that Kim checked mobile missile launchers and other components of the system on Tuesday. It said the missile launchers produced in the first half of this year will be deployed to units of North Korean armed forces. Singapore's deputy leader Lawrence Wong is said to be sworn in as the nation's 4th Prime Minister. Wong's inauguration brings to an end to 2 decades under Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong and comes as Singapore faces growing domestic and international challenges. The ceremony is scheduled to be held on Wednesday. Wong will succeed Lee, the eldest son of the first Prime Minister, and the country's founding father, Lee Kuan Yew. Back to the headlines of the world news. Putin to open dialogue on Ukraine that takes Moscow's interests into account. North Korean leader inspects production of tactical missile system. And Singapore swears in new Prime Minister after 20 years. With that, we conclude this bulletin of world news. And moving on to development news. Sri Lanka attracted 830,693 tourist arrivals up to May 10, 2024, with India being the top source destination with 133,972. There were 46,042 arrivals from May 1st to 10th, with India accounting for 10,389, which is 23% of the total arrivals, and came to you in development news.
Moving on with sports news.
T20 skipper Wanindu Hasaranga says that he is satisfied with the team for the T20 World Cup. As a skipper, quoting, "I got the requested team for this World Cup and hope to do well with Sri Lanka's T20 skipper Wanindu Hasaranga," said before the team departure yesterday. Few of our bowlers had the chance to play the IPL and they are added to the team after a good exposure from the IPL. The batters also performed really well during the T20 preparation matches at the R. Premadasa International Cricket Stadium. As a team, they have good bowlers as well as batters, and this is a well-balanced team, said Hasaranga. He quoted saying, "We plan to reach the USA 10 days before the tournament, and this is a good opportunity to adjust to conditions. While last USA League tournament, a few Sri Lankan players were involved and get experience," unquote, he said. That came to you in sports news. We take a look at business news next.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීර හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business news sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The National Development Bank PLC commenced the financial year on a positive note with resilient performance for the first quarter of the year ended March 31st, 2024, recording a pre-tax profitability of 1.8 billion rupees, which is an impressive increase of 31% over the same period in 2023 year-on-year basis. The total operating income for the period was 10.1 billion rupees year-on-year, increase of 8%, driven by the net interest income of 8.1 billion rupees, net fee and commission income of 1.8 billion rupees, and other income of 208 million rupees. That came to you in business news. Economic news up next.
Business news sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීර හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
On to economic news. In a landmark move aimed at propelling Sri Lanka's export sector to new heights, the Sri Lanka's Export Development Board and the People's Bank have entered into a strategic partnership through the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding in Colombo. This partnership endeavours to invigorate the country's export landscape by identifying and supporting existing exporters, fostering potential market entrants, and catalyzing economic growth through amplified foreign exchange earnings and enhanced employment opportunities. Under this partnership, People's Bank will offer financial advisory services funding facilities and trade finance options to enhance the export capabilities of existing exporters, nurture potential new entrants, and elevate indirect exporters to direct export status. That came to you in Economic News.
Weather report.
The Met Department says that due to the low-level atmospheric disturbance in the vicinity of Sri Lanka, showery conditions are expected to continue further. Showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in most provinces of the island after 1 p.m. Heavy showers about 100 millimeters are likely at some places in the western, central, Sabragamo and Uva provinces. Showers may occur in the western and southern coastal areas during the morning as well. The general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damage caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during the thunder showers. This weather report was published this evening at 7:30 p.m. Further details could be obtained by visiting the official website of the department. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The President says the government remains steadfast in commitment to combat crime and ensure justice. The public asked not to panic over the AstraZeneca vaccine. The IDB urges new initiatives to boost industrial sector, says all estates full to capacity. 1,220 school clusters and 350 supervisory school boards to oversee them. Court order issued against the JVP trade union's protest in Colombo. Over 10,000 visitors witnessed 188 base jumps from the Lotus Tower. North Korean leader inspects production of tactical missile system. And T20 skipper Wanindu Hasaranga says that he is satisfied with the composition of the squad. With that, we conclude tonight's news broadcast, and now it's back to Ramesh to take you to the end of transmission and keep you well entertained. Back to you, Ramesh.